I know it sounds strange, but I've been using a bitter plant juice every morning. Yes, bitter. And at 68, my doctor says I'm still far from needing insulin. It wasn't always like this. Back in my 50s, I felt tired all the time, my feet would swell by noon, and I had this fog in my head I couldn't shake. I didn't want to end up poking my finger every day and watching my life shrink to pill bottles and doctor visits. So I prayed and I listened. And over time, I started trying some natural things, simple things. Some helped, some didn't. But a few, they changed the way my mornings feel, and even my blood sugar numbers. Not perfect, but steady. And thank the Lord, I've stayed off insulin. There's no miracle here, just old school remedies, a little patience, and the grace of waking up with another day to try again. Now, I ain't no doctor, and I'm not promising miracles. But if you're like me, over 60, try and stay active, keep your independence, maybe enjoy a slice of pie now and then without regret. These are the little daily remedies I've come to trust. They're cheap, safe, and they come from real traditions, some Southern, some international. My grandkids roll their eyes when I talk about okra water. But hey, I'll take their teasing if it means I feel better walking up the porch steps. Have you ever felt like your sugar runs your life, instead of the other way around? Then maybe, just maybe, something in this list can give you a little light. Before I tell you about the number one remedy I use daily, the one that made the biggest difference, I want to share 6 other natural helpers that have supported me along the way. You might just find one that fits your life. Backhand index pointing right, if this kind of story speaks to you. Share it with a friend or neighbor who might need a bit of hope today. God bless you for watching. Number 7, aloe vera juice. The first time I took a sip of aloe vera juice, I made a face so bad my wife laughed out loud. It was bitter, strange, and thick like something scraped from a plant pot. "You're really going to drink that?" she asked. But something in me said I had to try. My sugar had been rising little by little, and though I hadn't hit the danger zone yet, I felt it. More tired, more foggy, more cranky after meals. So I held my breath, drank a small cup, and prayed it would help. That was 2 years ago. I've been drinking it since, every single morning. And though I still don't love the taste, I thank the Lord for the way it makes my body feel lighter. My first memories of aloe go back to Alabama summers, when we'd rub the plant gel on mosquito bites and sunburns after long days outside. My grandma called it nature's medicine, and we believe it could fix just about anything on the skin. But no one ever talked about drinking it back then. That came later, when I started reading about folks using it for blood sugar. Turns out, aloe has this quiet way of calming the inside too. Not just your skin, but your gut and even your sugar levels. It's not a flashy remedy, but it's steady. And when you're trying to avoid insulin after 60, steady is a blessing. These days, I keep a bottle of pure, unsweetened aloe vera juice in the fridge. Every morning before breakfast, I pour out a little shot, just 2 or 3 gulps. It's become part of my routine, right between feeding the cat and making toast. I don't expect it to do all the work alone, but I notice that my sugar after meals isn't spiking the way it used to. I don't feel that crash by 10 a.m., and I've even been able to skip those heavy snacks I used to rely on. It's like my engine runs smoother, not faster, no rush, just balance. That's something you feel more than see. I also notice my belly feels calmer. I used to get these weird, gassy cramps after dinner, especially when I had something with gravy or too much spice. Since adding aloe, that's nearly gone. And what surprised me most was my joints. I used to groan just tying my shoes. Now I still creak, but I don't ache the same way. Maybe it's the anti-inflammatory part folks talk about. Maybe it's just age catching up slower. Either way, it feels like I bought myself a few more good mornings, and that's priceless at 68. There's no magic in the bottle, and I'm not telling anyone to ditch their medicine. But I am saying this. Sometimes the Lord places little answers right in front of us, hidden in bitter leaves and humble plants. Aloe vera juice won't make you young again, but it might help you feel a bit more like yourself, clear-headed, steady, less swollen. That's why I keep drinking it, even when it makes me pucker. Because when you find something that helps without hurting, you hold on to it, especially when your sugar's been creeping up like a slow train. Number 6, okra water. There's something about okra that just feels southern. I remember the smell of fried okra in my mama's kitchen. Crispy on the outside, soft, and a little slimy inside, served with cornbread and black-eyed peas. But soaking it in water? That was new to me. A neighbor told me about it at church one Sunday. Said it helped keep his sugar steady without needing extra pills. I was skeptical at first. But when you're trying to avoid insulin and stay active at 68, you listen. That night, I sliced up a few pods, dropped in a mason jar, and by morning, I had my first glass of what folks now call okra water. Drinking it felt like a throwback to old remedies, the kind our grandparents used before pharmacies lined every corner. It's not tasty. It's a little slimy, just like the vegetable, but there's something oddly comforting about it. I started sipping it every morning, right before my coffee. After a couple weeks, I noticed my morning sugar readings weren't bouncing so high anymore. Not perfect, but smoother. And I wasn't as thirsty all day, which used to be a warning sign for me. It's hard to describe, but I felt more in control, like my body wasn't fighting me so much. One thing I love about this habit is how simple it is. No pills, no powders, no running to the store. Just a few okra pods, some water, and a bit of patience. I let them soak overnight, and the water turns just slightly cloudy by morning. That's it. No need to eat the okra unless you want to. I toss mine in the compost. What matters is that gooey water. It's rich in soluble fiber, they say, and that might help slow down sugar absorption. Whether that's science or just Southern wisdom, I'll let the experts debate. All I know is I feel steadier since I started. Another thing I notice, my digestion thanked me. I used to get bloated and sluggish after heavy meals, especially on Sundays when we eat big with the family. Since starting the okra water, I feel lighter, not skinny. Lord knows I still enjoy my food, but less weighed down. My knees don't groan as loud either. Maybe it's in my head, or maybe that slippery green stuff is working on more than just sugar. Either way, I've made peace with the slimy texture, because the reward has been worth it. I never thought I'd be the kind of man to drink vegetable water before sunrise. But here I am, mason jar in hand, giving thanks for another small thing that helps me stay independent. Sometimes it's the simplest things, passed down through neighbors and church friends, that end up changing your day. I thank the Lord for that Sunday conversation. Without it, I might still be chasing sugar spikes with frustration. Now, I've got a quiet little ritual that helps me feel just a bit more in control. Number 5, bitter melon. If bitterness had a face, it'd be bitter melon. The first time I cooked it, I thought I'd done something wrong. It smelled sharp, like green pepper soaked in medicine. I took one bite and nearly gave up. But I'd read stories about folks overseas using it to help balance their sugar for generations. Places like India, the Philippines, even parts of Africa, they all had some version of bitter melon tea or stew. And here I was, an old Southern boy with a frying pan, trying to make sense of it. I didn't love the taste, but I loved the idea of a food that might help me stay away from insulin just by being itself. Back when I was a boy, we didn't have bitter melon in Alabama. We had squash, collards, and maybe the occasional weird cucumber from a neighbor's garden. But bitter melon? That was exotic. Still, I was drawn to it because everything I read pointed to one thing. It might help the body process sugar better, naturally. I found some at an international market, sliced it thin, and boiled it into tea. Lord, it was rough going at first. But after a week or two, I started feeling something I hadn't in years, a quiet steadiness. My energy didn't spike and crash after meals the way it used to. Now I make it part of my weekly rhythm. Not every day. I don't think my taste buds will forgive me, but maybe 2 or 3 times a week. Sometimes I cook it with onions and eggs, which helps soften the bitterness. Other times, I steep it in hot water and sip it slow, like medicine. I've noticed that on the days I drink that tea, I don't crave sweets as much. And believe me, I've got a weakness for banana pudding. But something in that bitter melon makes the sweet stuff seem less tempting. That's been a blessing all on its own. What I didn't expect was how it affected my mind. I don't mean thinking clearer, though I do feel less foggy, but something deeper, like discipline. The bitterness kind of reminds me that not everything good comes easy. Just like in faith, sometimes healing comes through the hard stuff. Every time I drink that tea, I think of the folks across the world who've used it for centuries without needing a prescription. That kind of wisdom humbles you, makes you grateful. So yeah, bitter melon isn't sweet. It doesn't go down easy. But it's one of the few things that made a real dent in my sugar swings without a single pill. That's why I keep it in my kitchen, right next to the coffee. Not because I crave it, but because I respect it. And in this season of life, anything that keeps me upright, mobile, and out of pharmacy line, that's something I thank God for, bitterness and all. Number 4, apple cider vinegar. The first time I saw someone drink vinegar on purpose, I thought they'd lost their mind. My neighbor that, bless her, pour a spoonful into water every morning like it was orange juice. Keeps the sugar down, she said. I chuckled and walked away. But later that year, when my own sugar started creeping and I felt that sluggish weight in my legs again, I remembered Dot's little ritual. So I gave it a try, 1 tablespoon in a glass of water before meals. The taste was sharp, like biting into a sour apple with a kick of fire. But after a week, something shifted. I didn't feel as heavy after eating, and the fog in my head started to clear. There's something old and trustworthy about apple cider vinegar. Maybe it's the color, that deep amber shade that looks like something stored in a wooden barrel. Or maybe it's the fact that folks have used it for hundreds of years, for digestion, sore throats, cleaning, and yes, even balancing sugar. It's not some new fad. It's been around longer than most of us. And now, doctors are finally catching up, saying it might help your body respond to insulin better, especially when you take it before a meal. That made me smile. Sometimes the old ways knew better all along. In my kitchen, the bottle sits right by the salt shaker. Before lunch or dinner, I mix a spoonful in a small glass of room temp water. I drink it slow, say a quiet prayer, and go about my meal. Nothing fancy. But the way it calms my stomach and helps me avoid those big sugar crashes, that's worth more than any fancy supplement. I even tried it before a pancake breakfast once, just to test it. And wouldn't you know it, I didn't feel that post-breakfast crash I usually get with syrupy meals. Small changes, big difference. What I love most is how gentle it is. There's no side effect that sends you run to the bathroom, and no artificial stuff to worry about. Just vinegar and patience. It's become a part of my rhythm, like tying my shoes or watering the porch plants. And it's helped me say no to that creeping fear of needing insulin one day. I know it's not a cure, but it's one more brick in the wall that keeps the sugar at bay, and that gives me peace. It's funny how the simplest things, the ones your grandma might have used, end up being the most powerful. A spoonful of vinegar in water doesn't sound like much, but when you feel steadier, clearer, and more in control after 60, that's everything. And to think I almost laughed it off, like it was some old wives' tale. Now, I smile every time I open that bottle. Thank the Lord for good neighbors and second chances. Number 3, cinnamon. The smell of cinnamon takes me straight back to my mother's kitchen. She'd make apple pie on Sundays, and that warm, spicy scent would wrap around the whole house like a hug. Back then, I just thought it was tasty. I had no idea it could help with blood sugar. Years later, when I started looking for natural ways to avoid insulin, I came across a study saying cinnamon might help your body use sugar better, kind of like turning down the volume on those sugar spikes after meals. I smiled and thought, well, Lord, if the answer's been an apple pie this whole time, maybe I'm not as far gone as I feared. Nowadays, I don't eat pie as much, but I still use cinnamon almost every day. I sprinkle it on my oatmeal in the morning, stir it into my coffee, and even dust it over apple slices for a midday snack. It's warm, it's comforting, and it doesn't cost much. Best of all, it's easy to add without changing your whole routine. I notice that on days I use cinnamon early, my sugar doesn't swing as wildly after lunch. It's not magic, but it feels like putting up a little fence between me and those sugar crashes that used to wipe me out by 2 p.m. One of the best things about cinnamon is how gentle it is. You're not forcing your body into anything. You're just helping it along. It's kind of like giving your system a walking cane instead of telling it to run. I never liked harsh supplements that made me jittery or upset my stomach. Cinnamon? It just fits into life. No side effects, no drama. Just a spice that God placed in our hands generations ago, and we're still finding ways to appreciate it. Sometimes, I even add it to warm milk before bed. My wife started that habit, and I joined her after a while. It's soothing, and I sleep better too. That's something they don't always tell you. Blood sugar swings can mess with your sleep. Since I started using cinnamon more consistently, those 3 a.m. wake-ups aren't as common. And when you're in your late 60s, a good night's sleep is a blessing you don't take for granted. It amazes me that something so sweet-smelling can have such quiet power. I used to think managing sugar meant pills, needles, and strict diets. Now I know it also means paying attention to the small, steady helpers, like cinnamon. Sometimes, the Lord gives us answers that smell like home. And every time I taste that spice, I feel like I'm being reminded. Healing doesn't always come in a bottle. Sometimes it comes in a pinch. Number 2, fenugreek seeds. The name alone sounds like something out of an old Bible verse. Fenugreek. I'd never even heard of it until a few years ago, when my nephew came back from a trip to India and brought me a little jar. "Try these in the morning," he said. "They're good for sugar." I looked at the tiny golden seeds and thought, "Son, these look like bird food." But something about the way he said it stuck with me. So I did some reading, asked around, and found out folks have been using fenugreek for centuries, not just in cooking, but to help keep their blood sugar steady. That got my attention real quick. I started slow, just a teaspoon of the seeds, soaked overnight in a cup of water. By morning, they puffed up a bit and gave off a strong, maple-like smell. I'd drink the water and chew the seeds, at first reluctantly. But soon, it became part of my dawn ritual, right between letting the dog out and putting on the coffee. I wasn't expecting much, to be honest. But within a couple weeks, I noticed something surprising. I didn't feel that desperate hunger between meals. My appetite settled down, and my sugar readings looked less like a roller coaster and more like a country road. What's special about fenugreek, I've learned, is the fiber. It's not rough like bran or cereal. It's soluble, which means it kind of turns into a gentle gel in your belly that slows down digestion, keeps the sugar from hitting your bloodstream all at once. The first time I read that, I thought, so this little seed is like a traffic cop for my sugar? It made sense. And the best part? No side effects, no jittery feelings, no belly aches, just a quiet, steady help. That's the kind I trust the most. Funny how something so foreign became part of my daily life. I've even shared some with my fishing buddies. One of them said it helped his cravings, especially for bread and sweets. It's a small change, but when you're over 60, those small changes can mean a whole lot. I still eat what I like, but I don't get those heavy crashes after a sandwich or a bowl of chili. And it's not willpower. It's just that my body handles it better now. I thank the Lord for every seed in that jar. I used to laugh when folks talked about ancient remedies and grandma medicine, but now I see the wisdom in it. Fenugreek seeds might look like nothing special, but for me, they've been a quiet blessing, a little morning habit that helps me stay off the meds and keep moving. And when I think about it, maybe God does work through the small things, one soaked seed at a time. Number 1, berberine. The first time I heard about berberine, I thought it was some kind of gemstone. Turns out, it's a plant compound that grows in roots. Things like golden seal and barberry. Not exactly something we use in Southern cooking. But when I read that it was being compared to metformin, the diabetes drug I was trying to avoid, I sat up straight. Could a natural supplement really do that? I dug in, read stories from other folks my age, even talked to a pharmacist friend from church. It works, he said, but it ain't something to play with. That was enough for me to give it a try, but with prayer and caution, I ordered a small bottle online and started slow, 1 capsule a day with lunch. Within a week, I felt a difference. My energy didn't crash in the afternoons like it used to. I wasn't craving sweet tea at 3 p.m., and even my post-meal sugar numbers looked better. The effect wasn't loud, it was steady, like someone gently turning down the volume on a noisy machine. I didn't feel jittery or sick. I just felt clearer, more level. It was the first time in a long time I felt my sugar was working with me, not against me. One thing I tell everyone, Berberine is strong. It may be natural, but it's not weak. You have to take it seriously. No doubling doses. No mixing with other meds unless your doctor gives the green light. I've been careful with it, and it's paid off. My numbers have stayed stable for over a year now. I still eat smart, walk after dinner, and sip my aloe juice in the mornings. But Berberine became the extra guardrail that helped me feel safe again. Like I could enjoy a meal without fear. What surprises me most is that so few folks around here have heard of it. We talk about apple cider vinegar and cinnamon at every potluck, but no one mentions Berberine. Maybe because it doesn't come from a garden or kitchen. But I think of it like a tool. God gave us herbs and plants for a reason, and sometimes the best ones are buried deep, waiting to be found. I thank the Lord I came across it before my sugar crossed a line. It gave me a second chance. Now, I take Berberine 3 times a day, as recommended, with food. And every time I open that bottle, I say a quiet prayer. Not just for myself, but for the folks out there still struggling, still searching. If you're thinking about trying it, talk to your doctor. Make sure it's safe for you. But don't ignore it just because it's not on a billboard. Sometimes, the strongest helpers are the quietest ones. I look back now and think, what if I hadn't tried? What if I just waited for the doctor to hand me a prescription and said yes without question? I probably wouldn't be walking as steady today. Wouldn't be climbing up to the attic for Christmas boxes or chasing grandkids around the yard. These simple habits, aloe juice, okra water, even that bitter tea, didn't change everything overnight, but they gave me back something I thought I'd lost, a sense of control. At 68, that's worth more than gold. And I truly believe the Lord led me toward each one of these little remedies, just when I needed them most. Now, I'm not here to tell you to throw away your medicine or ignore your doctor. No, sir. Everybody is different, and what works for me might not work the same for you. That's why it's so important to talk to your doctor, especially before trying something strong like Berberine. But I do hope this video gives you hope, because it's never too late, not at 60, 70, or even 80, to feel a little better than you did yesterday. And if you've got a few old jars, some okra, or a spice rack gathering dust, you might already be closer than you think. I still have days where I feel tired, where the scale won't budge or my knees argue with the stairs. But more and more, I also have days where I feel light again, steady, awake, thankful. I know I won't live forever, but I want to live well as long as I can. And if you're watching this, I know you do too. So don't give up. Start small. Try one thing. Give it a few weeks, and keep track of how you feel. Sometimes, the biggest changes begin with the quietest steps. Life after 60 can feel overwhelming, especially when doctors start talking numbers and charts. But remember, your body still listens, your spirit still fights, and your choices still matter. Whether it's a pinch of cinnamon or a glass of okra water, these simple tools might help you write a new chapter. One with fewer prescriptions and more porch time, more laughter, more peace. Thank you for walking through this journey with me. I hope it brought you comfort, curiosity, and maybe even a spark of motivation. May God bless you with strength, wisdom, and steady sugar. And if this video helped, share it with someone you care about. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can give is a little hope wrapped in a story.